We back?
Looks like we are back.
Okay, cool. So the Holy Trinity, HTML, CSS, JavaScript. CSS is not scary. Everybody, backend developers all complain about how awful CSS is, and I 100% disagree. And I think Brian will definitely agree with me in this, that CSS is awesome. It is one of the best, like, to be completely honest, there is no better way at making your website look good. Like, you could be the smartest JavaScript developer and write the most semantic HTML ever, but without CSS, it will look like garbage. And you can tell when a website has when a developer has spent quality time writing quality CSS because that website will look really good and it will function really good. So there's a lot of agencies out there that'll write garbage CSS and garbage JavaScript to like fix their garbage CSS, and the website might look really pretty, but it'll run like crap. So CSS is awesome. You should learn CSS. JavaScript is awesome. You should learn JavaScript. And HTML is the foundation and skeleton of everything that those two things
Sure.
stand
And
on.
it definitely wouldn't be a web workers if I didn't get on a soapbox about CSS. But it's definitely one of those things where I think a lot of the backend developers that Josh is kind of talking about there got into the idea that CSS is terrible a decade ago, and CSS kind of was terrible a decade ago. But it's incredible now, and all the strides that the W3C has made it really easy to work with on a lot of levels. Still has some quirks about it, but it's way more stable and honestly way more error tolerant than JavaScript.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll agree. And it's also really, really, really easy to debug in the on the browser. Like you pull up the browser and you can start playing around with CSS attributes and see what they look like immediately. Like there's a great feedback loop, stuff like that. So
Yeah.
yeah, I love
And Lance in
CSS.
the chat
Like
definitely
that's
like it's
art.
much more standardized than it used to be. Like and the big part CSS was never hugely terrible on its own. There were some terrible issues around what they had to kind of figure out, but like the browsers were where those issues kind of came into play, and the idea that you're designing and that you're writing code for layout on any number of sized browsers, on any number of computers, on any number of processors is amazing that we can make anything work just in general. So yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, browsers definitely introduced some cogs there, but in general, like CSS can do so much cool stuff. Like I will not go as far as Brian and try to build websites without JavaScript, only using CSS, but I definitely can see that like with the modern CSS, it's possible. Like there's a lot of stuff that's possible that used to not be possible. But if you want to learn framework stuff, like frameworks are a tool to get better at something you're already good at, in my opinion. So like React is great at creating a level of abstraction over your knowledge of JavaScript. There's things that you do in JavaScript all the time that you just don't want to write over and over again. And that's what React and Vue and Angular do for you is they add a layer of abstraction. But in my opinion, you need to know what's inside that layer of abstraction before you start using the layer of abstraction. So yeah, um, Wes Boss has great video tutorials. JavaScript 30 is one of my favorites.
And one of my favorite things in terms of the way JavaScript is functioning nowadays too is the way that the standards bodies are actually writing in the features that are coming in these frameworks. And so if you go back a decade, right, with the advent of jQuery, jQuery made the DOM accessible to a lot of people, right? It was very easy at that point to go grab an element by any selector possible. And so the W3C and the TC39 committee, like they looked at it and they said, you know what? Let's put that in the specification. And so that's why we have document.get element or query selector and query selector all. That's based on jQuery. And the same thing with React and Vue. We now have web components, and a lot of that syntax is coming straight from these frameworks. And so hopefully you learn the frameworks a little bit, but also learn these new things coming in JavaScript that are going to take over those frameworks. These frameworks are always going to become obsolete at some point, ideally because the platform has adopted all of what made them useful.
Yep, totally agree.
some good questions. Any other questions for Josh? We'll definitely be doing this again next month, second Tuesday of the month. If nothing else, we'll be looking for a speaker of some sort. And if I can get more speakers on board, maybe we'll do it a couple times a month. It's pretty easy to set up at this point. Hopefully there won't be a crash next time. We'll see how that goes. Thanks for stopping by. This is obviously not a web workers channel. This is my personal Twitch channel where I do live code. So feel free to come by most weekdays. I'm working on something in the mornings. Thanks for the various follows that came through tonight. I don't want to throw out too many of them, but I appreciate that definitely. And we'll see you next time around. So I'll leave the channel up for a little bit so people can keep kind of chatting as you go. And then see us online. You can find Josh at KTAL1, KAYTAL1. Josh, is that right?
Yep.
That's on Twitter. Also, I think on Twitch here. You can find me on Twitter at BROB at BRob. We also have a Twitter account for Memphis Web Workers. It's at MemphisWW. Feel free to go check that out. Or as you can see down below, we've got MemphisWebWorkers.com there as well. But yeah, we'll see you next time around, and hope you all do some amazing stuff on the web. See ya.
Bye.